Hey, hello. My name is Lonnie, and I'm an addict. Um, and welcome everybody. I was introduced to PI. It was just like serendipitous. Like I was at an area meeting. Where Vina was talking about applying for the chairperson's position, and in her chair, she said, "Well, if you wanted to know more about it, come to this meeting." you know. And as would happen, my commitment was up as a GSR, and my group needed a PI rep. So it was just a natural flow, and I've been surprised and amazed at how much I like this. And I'm beginning to see the importance of PI because it's answering a lot of questions that I didn't know. All right. So this time we're going to talk about the phone lines. And could you start now? And thank you for letting me share.
I'm Laura, and I'm from the Chicagoland region. I'm grateful to be here today, Manhattan area PI, and Wilvina, thank you so much for inviting us to share on the topic of phone lines. In the Chicagoland region, I serve as our H&I PR chair and have for the last 2.5 years. My experience for public information, or as we say here in Chicago, public relations, began back in 1992 in my early recovery and spanning over the past 28 years in many different ways. So today I have brought 2 friends with me from Chicagoland region to help. I was having some personal things going on and I was unsure. That's why we got a little confused with the programming, whether when I agreed for to do this workshop, I wasn't sure if personal issues were going to come in conflict. So we always stay prepared as best as we can. So the show must go on. So we also have Charles. So Charles, did you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Charles, grateful recovering addict. Glad to be here. My first public relations was in 1990, and the rehab facility I went to in the military did not support Narcotics Anonymous. And they told me that if I wanted to go to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, I had to start one inside the facility. So without even knowing, I did a presentation and set up a meeting at like 4 months clean. And I've been involved with H&I PR ever since.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. And Rusty?
Rusty addict. I've been involved with H&I and public relations information since the late 80s, and I've never looked back. I think in our basic text it talks about we're all members of public relations, so keep that in mind when you're in facilities doing dumb stuff. So aside from that, I've been the Chicagoland Regional Public Relations Chair. I've been a co-chair. I've been the helpline chair. I was actually the H&I chair. Lots of different positions that you probably don't want to hear about, but mostly my most rewarding stuff comes from public relations, talking to the public, answering the helpline, seeing people in meetings that say that they got to Narcotics Anonymous, they recognized your voice from the helpline and they end up in a meeting later. And maybe years later, they realize that it was you that they talked to. With that being said, I stick around public relations and I help out where I can.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so Chicagoland Region Helpline Workshop Agenda. So what we're going to be sharing about today is the NA phone line literature available, the evolution of the NA helpline, or in some areas or regions call it phone line, the history of the Chicagoland Region Helpline, our present day, how we do our service today, and our largest subcommittee in our region, and hopefully we're going to have time for member experience. So So NA phone line literature available in different areas and regions of the world. The NA helpline is the same in our purpose, yet possibly different in our functionality. For some members, the NA helpline is the first contact to Narcotics Anonymous. NA.org has literature available and guidelines to explain how to facilitate and answer the helpline. Some examples are the PR handbook, phone line basics, and a guide to phone line service. Our shared experience is invaluable to the newcomer and the NA member who wants to get involved with our local helpline. And remember, we're not professionals, just members sharing our experience. A call to the NA phone line, also known as a helpline, may be someone's first interaction with Narcotics Anonymous. That is right from our phone line basics. These calls are vital. A phone line call can make a major difference in whether or not an addict makes it to an NA meeting. We need to respond to callers in a way that makes them feel like they matter. We encourage volunteers to bring their experience and their public relations awareness to this important service opportunity. This resource outlines ways a service body can evaluate its resources, choose a helpline provider, train and prepare helpline volunteers, and coordinate services in a way that makes local helplines more successful. So that's just an excerpt. There's more very good information there. Again, this is from the front cover of the phone line basics. We also have a saying in our region many years back that to tape a quarter to the back of your white key tag, and if you feel like you need to you'll use the quarter to call someone. And back then, the payphone was only 25 cents. Good luck finding a payphone these days. Okay, so in our PR handbook, we do have some frequently asked questions. We're not going to read this. This is way too tiny, but it's available. And there's, what to do if, just like my boyfriend is using drugs, stealing and cheating. What can I do to help him? Will you call him? I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a call like that. No, he's got to call us, But this is frequently asked questions. This could be found in the PR handbook in chapter 9 on pages 9, 10, and 11. But it's great information. Next, we have our referral form for referring calls to the area or region. And then it just says, there are times when trusted servants within the area or at a regional service committee may be more experienced with answering certain phone requests. This is a sample referral form for tracking of such calls. This form will allow us to follow the referral to ensure that the request answered and the call's needs are met. So, we will pass this form on to our volunteers. They're going to fill it out and then they're going to email it to, we have a helpline coordinator. And it would also go to the PR chair because in our region, our public relations committee, it's an umbrella structure, and phone lines is within our public relations. So we can work together in our efforts. We also have this community referral list. This community referral list is used when the caller is asking for help that does not fall within our primary purpose. And in the spirit of cooperation, we will refer certain phone numbers out to help meet their needs. But some areas, they have a 911 or a 411 or a 311. On here it shows a 211. So there's resources we can try to meet, but the most important goal is to get the potential member that's in help to a meeting so we can help them, because we can only do so much on the phone. So getting into the evolution of the NA helpline. So I'm sure, a lot of us are familiar with, the traditional hardwired phone line. We've used answering services to answer our phone line. We've also used answering machines or voicemails. I know in our region, we passed around beepers, you know, it was like really cool back then, and answering the calls coming through, or even having the answering service page us, oh, you got a call them back. Call forwarding, live volunteer answering, the phone call, you know, just a live person. Hello, helpline, how can I help you? You know, and now what we're seeing in a lot of areas and regions is the app through the BMLT, and it's an automated attendant, you know, press 1 for a meeting or 2 for, you know, to get to a live person. It also has a built-in meeting finder, which is, you know, some areas it works great. So this is where I'm going to bring Rusty on board, and Rusty is going to share about the history of the Chicagoland Region Helpline. And Rusty?
Good morning again, and I'm just gonna read the list like it says here. We started, the Chicagoland region used to be an area, the Chicagoland area. So we had an area helpline. We were part of the Mid-Coast region at the time, I believe. It was a little bit before my time, but I've talked to other members that were there, and that's what I understand. So they had an answering service, and as for a long time, almost a decade, we had an answering service. And in 1986, we've formed the Chicagoland region. We've got a service office. We had a service worker at the office with a hardwired phone on the desk, and we answered the phone there, as well as sometimes members would go to the office and answer the helpline there. There was an answering machine that had a list of meetings when the office wasn't open. And at times later in the 80s, we adopted call forwarding. So when the service worker would leave the office, they would forward the phones on to a volunteer. The volunteer would have the phones from the time the office closed until the time the office opened the next day. And if you had it on the weekends, you had it from Friday night until Monday morning. In 1990 or so, early 90s, we modified that system. We were able to get adopt call forwarding, which made it easier for a helpline chair to forward the phones from anywhere, as opposed to having to forward the phones from the office. And that made it easier, and that also increased the volume of volunteers that we had. We were able to have volunteers answer the phone from their home during the day and their home at night. We added a Spanish helpline in the early 90s, as well as an events line. A lot of the calls that we were getting were, hey, where's a dance? You know, and sometimes we would get missed calls because we were giving directions to the dance. So we created an events line so people could call and find out what type of recreation and activities were going on. Around 2008, we got a Polish helpline. We had an automated attendant on a lot of things. We still did have a transfer person. 2018, we got a coach to train volunteers. And in 2019, our helpline went digital. No hardwired line at the location. And, you know, I'd get into that, what we did with that. But if anybody has any questions about that, I'll talk to you later about the hardwire. It's amazing. Just let me say that it's amazing how people that aren't members, that aren't addicts, appreciate what we do and want to help us in our efforts to carry the message, whatever they can do. And that was the case with the hardwired line. When we moved out of our office in the 90s, we wanted to keep our helpline number. And we were moving to a different exchange. We put a lot of public relations efforts into keeping that number, lots of billboards, lots of bus signs, lots of business cards, lots of things that went out onto professionals that knew what our number was and how to get a hold of us. And if we changed that number, we figured that a lot of our public relations efforts would be lost and we'd have to redo them. So when we were moving, I was explaining this to the landlord, and the landlord said, "Hey, just pull that wire into the wall and put some plaster over it, and we'll just leave it here. And then you can forward it out." And that's what we did. What else here? So we got 2019, we went back. We eliminated that auto attendant. We found that we were dropping a lot of calls. People, I don't, you're an addict, you're calling something and you get a press 1 for this and a press 2 for that. You kind of, I don't know, I'd split. And we found that a lot of people were doing that. So we went back in 2019 to remove that auto attendant and have someone answer the phone and say, "Hello, may I help you?" And that has remedied us losing calls. And we believe that that's probably saved addicts' lives. And we have a system now that is beyond my scope of knowledge. And I think Charles will be talking about that later. Thanks for letting me share.
All right. Thanks, Rusty. Lots of information. Yeah. So going on, these are 3 different helpline posters in our Chicagoland region. We do have a Spanish helpline, an English helpline, and a Polish helpline. So we get calls on 3 different phone lines. So we have to have volunteers to service these 3 different phone services. So going on to the next one, we have, these are the electronic billboards we had in the past year. It is important to be aware that our PR efforts in our public relations increases calls on our helpline, and we may need to have backup volunteers. 1 call missed may be someone's chance for recovery and possibly their life. So we had about 20 of these signs around Chicago. We watched our phone lines jump up. We get an average of about, and Charles will get more into this, about 200 calls a month. So we watch the calls jump up an extra 100 for the month. But depending if we get visual, like on TV, we have active PSAs going, we could watch our phones go up an additional 100 or 200, which we've seen in the past. So it's not just having the phone line, getting the message out there, being able to take care of the calls. And I answered the phone line where it was literally, "Can I put you on hold? Because I need to answer another call." And it can happen, it gets pretty busy sometimes. So this is an NA booth at an event. Our helpline number is on the tablecloth, the marquee behind the tablecloth, the business card, as well as the stamped literature on the table. So our helpline that phone number is on everything we do in our public relations efforts. So, and then we're going to get into present day. We're going to bring Charles on board, and Charles is our helpline coordinator in our present day. So Charles?
Hi, everybody. So we use and I won't say the name of the system because, that would be an implied endorsement, but we have an automated system. And what happens is that, as you can see from the system here, we have different time slots in blue. And then because we use 2 people per slot, we have the first person, it will ring to them, and it will ring to them anywhere from 15 to 20 seconds. Then it'll go to our backup person. And we try to make sure we have a backup person for all 3 of our slots. Our first slot is 8 to 12 on weekdays, then 12 to 6, then 6 to overnights. And then on the weekends, we have it just in 2 12-hour shifts, and we have 2 backups there. Our Polish and Spanish hotline, basically 1 person mans them a day. We, like Laura said, we average somewhere around 200 calls per month. The average call time is right around 5 minutes. Most of the time people are calling because they are, you know, a little unclear about meeting stuff, but we get quite a lot of calls about quite a lot of things, which is why having a good referral list is important. You know, some of the things we provide are, I provide the trained people we do. First off, nobody just gets onto the helplines. We have a whole training thing. If you could advance the next slide. We have 98 trained volunteers, and I'm constantly checking on that, confirming with volunteers, making sure they're good, because you know, I don't want somebody who calls the phone lines to have an issue. We send them a sheet, we send them a do's and don'ts, kind of like the one you use for H&I. We have that community referral list because we don't just get calls for NA. I've gotten calls for suicide prevention. I've gotten calls for other 12-step fellowships, treatment facilities, the list goes on and on. I was working the phone lines when WGN put us nationwide. That was pretty exciting. I was getting calls from all over the country. You know, and one guy in particular called me to report his sponsor to the sponsor police because he was doing a bad job. We also make sure to include that FAQ of sample calls. And then what I usually will do, or Colleen, who is our service coach, will go over and we'll do some practice calls. We also include the phone lines flowchart, and it's a rather large document, but it looks great because it shows, you know, how to escalate a call, where to send it to. Here's an example of our do's and don'ts. Here's the proper use of the helpline. My experience has been that if we didn't have the proper use of the helpline thing, people would do crazy things with the phone lines, and that phone line is there for Narcotics Anonymous. You know, this is not the Charles G show, this is NA show, and I need to put that first, right? You know, and that's how I damage our public relations, by putting myself ahead of the needs of the fellowship when I'm doing these presentations. You know, what's the next one? And then, you know, the thing is, you know, for me, running a phone lines committee is always looking for replacement volunteers. You know, people have lives, you know, and what may work for them in one stage may not work for another. And I don't want to be caught hands down. So I'm always recruiting new people and going through the drill and seeing what it is. You know, I just think it's a really great position. I mean, when I started out, you know, we had the answering service, and I would get calls in the middle of the night, and you know, we would have to physically transfer it over, and I would physically transfer it to the next person. And it's just amazing to have this editor now and to take advantage of this new technology so that it's so seamless. I mean, sometimes it goes so smooth, the person that I share the slot with will call me and make sure everything is all right. You know, and that's what it's like running a helpline committee now. It's a pretty great experience. And I talk about it whenever I can, and I always shill. I'm the Chicagoland Regional RD. When I'm out there doing my RD things, I talk about our phone line. You know, I'm also involved on our convention. I talk about our phone lines at our convention because, you know, people are not going to know that we're doing these things if we don't let them know we're doing these things, right? We can't be the best kept secret.
Chicagoland area, Chicagoland region. I just wanted to let you guys know that it is 28 minutes after the hour. And if you would like to volunteer and put your emails in the chat, so because I'm sure people have questions, but we're probably not going to have time for that. So if you could put your emails into, you know, voluntarily put your emails into the chat in case anybody wanted to email you with questions about anything, I think that would be very appreciated. And yeah, just want to let you know it's about to be 29 minutes after the hour. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm finished with my spiel. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay. Well, thank you, Charles. And yeah, so I know we have 2 minutes left, but that was where we were going to leave for some questions. I know I could just share so many experiences with our phone line service, whether it be sending someone to a call or sending someone to a meeting, or I remember even talking to a potential member of, I have drugs here, I don't know what to do. And we going through the process on the phone together, and it has left such an impression in my life. I'm grateful to be able to come and all of us share our experience here. So, Wilvina, I don't know if we have time for any questions. I know we also have our last slide here where thank you very much for letting us share. We do have our email here, so we welcome support and help to anybody who wants to further our primary purpose through the phone lines. So, or in any public information, public relations, we are here to help, you know, shared experience. So.
Well, Laura, I think we're going to exercise the principle of flexibility, because if, you know, that was such a comprehensive presentation. You guys from Chicagoland rock. And, you know, we're so glad that you did this. So listen, at this time, if people have questions about phone lines, it's such an incredibly vital part of service in Narcotics Anonymous. And, you know, for those people that have those questions about the difference between PI and PR, you know, public relations actually is that big umbrella that encompasses a phone line under that that title. So, you know, if you're just public relations, you may not have phone line, may be separate or maybe something else, but under the big PR umbrella, you've got phone line, some include others. So any questions? Any questions right now? Okay, we have Johnny H. and Jose. Go ahead, Johnny.
Thank you, Wilvina. Johnny H. In some discussions with another member with a lot of experience with the phone line here in New York City, many decades ago, it's nice to hear all the recollections and how they conducted the phone line, how they operated the phone line. So a key question comes up in my mind, and that is, I'd like to hear if anyone with vast experience with this could share their view on this key point. How important might it be to have a live person answer the phone versus an answering service, a voicemail, or an IVR system? Although an IVR system could just have an option for a live person. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Johnny. I do know from personal experience when I took on, when I agreed to take the position for public relations chair of the Chicagoland region, you know, part of, you know, of course, it became with an informed decision. And knowing how our phone line was operating on an auto attendant, press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, 3 for Polish, when I got on board, I watched the phone drops, and we could actually monitor that. The phone drops were less than a minute. And then when we made the decision to bring on a live person, we saw our call spans going to 5 minutes, which means they're actually making a contact. And when I've had the opportunity to talk to members, you know, who have called the helpline and said, I couldn't think myself out of a box, let alone press number 1. I just wanted help. So it was member experience too. So it was a very informed decision to go that route, at least for the Chicagoland region. Other areas might not get as many calls as we do. In our committee, we felt it was important to run the helpline in this capacity. So, and we're seeing through our phone calls and the last, you know, how long the calls are lasting, this is working. So.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jose?
Hi, everyone. My question is, does your helpline use YAP or BMLT?
Thank you, Jose. We do have the BMLT integrated with our Chicago NA.org with our website. We do not have YAP. I have gone to many workshops about learning about YAP, and it works for some areas or regions. For us, right now, We are working on a live volunteer answering the phone to serve the still suffering addict right where they're at. You know, we are blessed with volunteers to be able to answer that call. And as long as we could do it, it's working. And it sounds like the addict in need, when we talk to them, they need this. So
You guys have a hotline or a helpline?
it's a helpline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane?
Hi, Diane Addict. Thank you very much for that. It's more of a commentary on my experience with a helpline number back in my early recovery when I was down in Florida. And I was just wondering if this Chicagoland ever did or encountered the same occurrences. I remember back in early recovery, I called the helpline number, just needing somebody to be on the phone with me for a few hours, just to get through till the quote unquote boys came in off the corner. And there were no meetings open. I couldn't get anybody from the phone list because of the time of hour it was. So I called the helpline number from the meeting list. And the person from the helpline stayed on the phone with me long enough to where I got through those few hours. And I remember meeting them in a meeting after that. And I was just wondering if you ever encountered something like that there.
Yes, personally, I have, and I'm smiling and getting goosebumps because, you know, I've had other members say, well, you're just supposed to get them to a meeting, but in the middle of the night, we need to talk to another member who understands how we're feeling. And sometimes if we can give that time to carry them over till they can get to the meeting or to get through the moment, we're sharing our experience, and from one addict to another without parallel, you know, that, you know, in the middle of the night, that's when some of those real deep calls come in. And yes, I've been on the phone for an hour or two trying to help another member. And I just remember, you know, helping a member, you know, get rid of her drugs on the phone, and just enough. And it would left such an impression in me. I'm like, I'm going to just do this as long as I can. So thank you. Thank you.
I've been on both ends of those calls. I remember wanting to not share in a meeting, and I called the helpline because it was anonymous, and I knew there'd be an addict on the other end, and that addict talked to me for about an hour. And I was in early recovery, and it was beneficial to me. You know, someone took the time to talk about things and not judge me, and I could remain anonymous where I didn't feel like that in the meeting. You know, I wasn't comfortable yet. And on the other side of that, I've told people to put the phone down, go to the refrigerator, get a glass of water, eat a piece of toast, maybe make some scrambled eggs. I'll stay with you until you finish eating, and then I want you to go to sleep. And, you know, sometimes it's just that, you know, sometimes they need a friend, man. You know, they don't have any. And if we can be their friend and help them through a tough time, maybe they'll come to our meetings and maybe they'll get recovery.
Thanks so much, Rusty. All right, looks like we have one final question before we go to our next segment. Johnny?
Thank you again. This is more of a comment / observation. It seems that here in the New York City greater region, there are numerous areas with numerous helplines. I don't have any tangible evidence to say whether these numbers are getting answered live or not. I'd just like to put out there as a thought for those of us that are involved with this or getting involved with this or care about this, that perhaps there may come a time where we need to join forces, so to say, and make sure that there's one main phone number covering perhaps multiple areas or further, and that it be staffed with a man, with a live person answering the phone. And then of course, they need the resources, the meeting list for the different areas, et cetera. It seems that there's a lot of duplication of services, duplication of websites. Well, we have to have our own website because and it just seems like a lot of extra work. And then when the trusted servants that are supposed to be maintaining, for example, as we speak, there's a couple of meeting lists that they don't have the right Crouton plugin. They're not indicating with the flag that the meetings are shut down. Therefore, there's meeting lists out there sending people to meetings that are not open. They are temporarily shut down. And in the past couple of weeks, I've been coordinating with some people with that and trying to sort that out. And we've made some good progress. But to have, I think I covered it. Thank you.
May I speak to that for just a second?
Please do.
Yeah, we had a similar experience in our region. Now, I'm not sure what your structure is there in New York, but we had areas that attempted to run their own helpline as opposed to a regional helpline. And with similar experiences, sometimes the phone wasn't being picked up, et cetera. And it kind of created some confusion as well, because that was back when we had phone books, and and some of those areas were getting their phone number listed in the phone book, where the regional helpline was not in the phone book, and it just created confusion for professionals, for anybody that was trying to find a meeting, especially if those phone lines weren't being picked up. Eventually, they all folded back into the region, and that works well for us. We cover, I believe, 7 counties with our helpline as far as areas go. So,
Yeah,
consolidated.
I wanted to speak to that as well, and then there's some people on this call too. There has been discussion on the zonal level. The U.S. zones have been meeting to discuss the initiatives with having a national phone line and national website for the very reasons that Johnny and Rusty mentioned. It hasn't had movement. It's a discussion point, but this is the real PR imperative right now. How are we connecting people in a much broader sense? How are professionals being connected to a one-stop number? And also in other service bodies like Canada that have a national phone line, have a national website, have actually a national public Facebook. So this is why we have these international and national meetings, because